During one of my conversations with my mother, I asked her if she could tell me when did I become so aggressive and not willing to accept the kind of treatment that other Negroes accepted, indiscriminatory attitudes of white. And she said, well, you've been that way, but there was one time when you really became very aggressive. And this time it was an incident in which my friends and I were playing marbles. We weren't in our own neighborhood, we were playing in a driveway. And concerned with playing marbles, all of a sudden a car drove up, right as if it were going to run over us. The man put on his brakes, rolled down the window and yelled, "You niggers, get out of the way." Well, I looked at him and I said, "You say nigger again, and I'll throw a brick through your windshield." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, exactly what I said. And of course, my buddies were standing there with me. They were right there, and we knew we were going to be together. The man said, "Well, nigger, you heard me. You get the H out of the way." I picked up a brick, and I rammed it right through his windshield. And of course, I knew my friends and I were together, and they were there behind me. So I looked around, and I wanted to say, "Now, fellas," but there was no one behind me. They were turning the corner half a block away, and I was standing there alone. And the next thing for me to do was to get out of there as fast as I could, and I did get out, run. We learned that that person was the mayor and was the pharmacist with a drugstore in Milford. In one of the other incidences that happened, going to school at Howard High School, there were only one or two ways I had of getting home. I didn't have money to get on the bus or the train, and my mother would arrange to drive up either with people or use a car and pick me up, or I hitchhiked from Wilmington to Milford. And this particular day, we were driving back from Wilmington, and as we got near Smyrna, Mother said, "I feel kind of funny," and she began to sweat. So I'm going to pull off to the side. Would you run in here and get me a drink of water? The place where she stopped was a restaurant called the Checkerboard Inn. It's right on 13 on southbound Smyrna at a stoplight. Now, I knew that we couldn't go into the restaurant and eat, but I thought we could get a drink of water. So I rushed in, and here I am in the 8th grade, and scared and not knowing how my mother was, and said very quickly to the waitress, "May I have a glass of water for my mother, please?" And she cursed at me and said, "Nigger, you get out of here. You know you don't belong in here." So I went around to the back door. And when I got to the back door, there was a man in there, and I said, "Can I have a glass of water for my mother?" And again, he told me, "You know, niggers, you don't come in here." He turned and walked away. And when he did, I went out the door, looked back, and saw he wasn't there. So I opened the door very quietly, went in, and got a cup that was sitting near the spigot there, and the spigot was near the doorway. Got a cup of water very quietly and took it out to Mother. She drank it, and as she finished, she said, "Oh, that's so good and nice and cool. Go get me another one." And of course, you can imagine how I felt, easing back in there and hoping the man wasn't there, and he wasn't. Got the water, went back out to the car. She said, "Now carry it back in and thank them for the water." I carried the cup back. When I opened the door, the man saw me, and he gave me some curse words and told me what I was again. So I took the cup, threw it at him, ran back and got in my car with Mother, and we took off. My mother didn't know that for a long time. She did not, I would not tell her about that incident. In another very traumatic incident that happened to me during my young life, my friends and I were trying to get a job, and we left Milford walking down to Slaughter Neck. And the farm we went up to was a man named John Isaacs. He had a number of farms in that area, and all of his farms had the same color. You would know it's John Isaacs' farm because of the way he painted his buildings. Looking at one of the areas, we saw a lady, a black lady, was sweeping out a chicken coop, and in the doorway with branches of a tree, and she was sweeping it out. And I said to my friend, and my friend was a young man named Dick Walls. Dick, look, this woman's sweeping out a chicken coop. I wonder why. So we went over there. They were living. She and two youngsters were in that chicken coop, living. And she was sweeping it out with branches, the dirt floor, not a wooden floor, the dirt floor. And I said, are you living here? She said, yes, this is where we're going to stay for a while. We didn't get a job there, but when we went back to Milford at a factory there, I was telling and relating that story. Both of us were telling the story. And one person said, there's John Isaacs right up the street there. I said, I'm going to tell him. And I did go up, and I said to him what he was, because he had people living like that. I said in such a manner that he threatened to have me arrested. And I said, you can have me arrested, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm coming back. We're going after you. We did go back, and we did make some influence on Mr. Isaacs. You know, there's a very interesting situation that happened at Governor Bacon Health Center. When we were employed there, of course, segregation was in the state. However, it was significant to understand that the law in this state said that black children could not be taught by white teachers, and white children could not be taught by black teachers. Yet at Governor Bacon Health Center, we had a school, and the children were white and the teachers were black, and nothing was done about it. But there was segregation. For instance, I had come out of college and I was a certified lifeguard. Now, we had a swimming pool there, and the kids went into the swimming pool, but I could not get in that pool with them. I was a certified lifeguard. I was the only lifeguard. Now, to teach them how to swim, and we have a picture of it, a white student who was there working from the university during the summer would get in the pool, and I would tell him what to do and to instruct him how to instruct the kids when they got into the pool. That is a fact. Except one day, while we were there and I was dressed completely, a kid in the middle of the pool was struggling. And this young man didn't know what to do. And with cap and all, I went into the pool and brought her out with my watch, and they wouldn't even reimburse me for my watch that I had in water. But even that is not the end of it. At Governor Bacon Health Center, they had a position for the director of recreation. I had all the prerequisites of that, everything that was necessary. However, I was called in and told, even though I was qualified for that position, they were going to give it to another person. They gave it to a person who was white, who had a degree in drama. And then they said to me, you'll have to help him because he's going to need help to get on.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing those ideas.
When do I get paid?